Tech Cocktail Conversations, candid insights from startup founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders from around the globe.
So in the last 15 years, our understanding of the science of habit formation has been completely transformed. And so the book that I wrote basically looked at this science, and in particular not only how habits work in individuals' lives, but how habits work within companies. And what we've learned is that every single habit has three parts. There's a cue, a routine, and a reward. And most people focus on the routine, the behavior, when they think about habits, but this cue and this reward create a neurological craving which drives the behavior. And so that's how you change or influence habits, is by paying attention to what triggers it and what reward it provides. I think there's two things that we've learned about businesses, companies, particularly startups, and habits, right? The first of which is how to instill or grow habits in your customer. And what we know is that the reward has to be genuinely rewarding that you're delivering for something to become habit forming, right? A great example of this is, for instance, the product Febreze that Procter & Gamble rolled out, which was a complete flop when they did it, and is now $1 billion a year product because they learned that they had to add more perfume to it so that it was genuinely rewarding for consumers. And in the digital space, we see this all the time, right? Companies that deliver rewards that aren't actually rewarding, right? So the question would be, why, for instance, when Facebook delivers you an update or when Foursquare delivers you a badge, why is that genuinely rewarding? And a lot of it has to do with social ramifications. You're getting some type of acclaim or standing with your peers. And if the reward that your product is delivering isn't genuinely rewarding outside of the context of that product, then it's not going to instill a habit in the consumer. So here's the thing about habits, is that there are bad habits, and we think about bad habits, but most habits are actually good habits, right? So there was a study that was done by a researcher at Duke University that found that 45% of daily decisions are actually habits, right? You're not making a decision. You're just acting instinctually for a behavioral pattern that's been ingrained, particularly in your neurology. So those good habits are incredibly important, right? When you back your car out of a driveway, or when you sit down to reply to an email and it seems sort of effortless, that's a habit. That's a learned behavior that you've instilled in yourself. The question is, how can you grow more good habits? And the answer is, again, to look at these cues and the rewards. The behavior is very hard to dislodge unless you know what triggers it and you know what craving it's feeding, what reward it's providing. Once you know that, according to laboratory studies, you can change almost any behavior. The number one thing to do would be to instill this in your own employees, to change your employees' habits, and every major company does this very well if they're a good company, right? Starbucks, for instance, their entire training system is built around building willpower habits, because they know that when someone comes and they buy a $4 cup of coffee, they expect good customer service, and they hire tons of recent high school graduates, right? And after an 8-hour shift, those people all want to basically yell at the customer. So how do you teach them to be better people? By instilling willpower habits. And the way that you do that is you look for inflection points, either in your own life or in your employees' lives. Where do you normally break down? Where do you find in the afternoon that you start procrastinating because you don't have the willpower to actually continue sending emails? Look for those moments and then create a plan ahead of time for exactly how to respond to that inflection point. What we found is that willpower is like a muscle. It gets tired over time. But if you plan ahead of time, if you develop and structure a habit to respond to a breakdown moment, it doesn't take willpower, right? We all know this, that when you have a to-do list and all of a sudden you feel tired and you don't know, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon and you look at the to-do list and it says, do this next, it's easy to do. But if you have to make a decision, it's not. So the answer is, look for the failures. Look for the moments when things break down and figure out the next step. And that makes it a lot easier.